Okay, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining me. This is the Career Influencer Network resume and cover letter uh, presentation, updating some of the information that we're hearing from employers, and we're just seeing in the industry with the rise of AI use in resumes. So appreciate you all being here. Feel free to ask questions throughout. I'm happy to answer those on the spot. Um, or you can wait till the end, whatever is easiest for you. So as you probably know, I feel like this is common knowledge these days. Employers spend 20 seconds or less reviewing a resume. Previous to coming to Santa Clara, I was a recruiter, and I can tell you that yes, that is true. I did spend a very short number of seconds scanning the resume, looking for a few key pieces of information that I needed for that job, and then would make a decision on next steps based really quickly on that information. So the resume is a very important tool. When looking at resumes, some of the things that we really want to chat with students about is the use of a job description. So when I meet with students, a lot of times what happens is they try to think about everything they've ever done, and they usually don't come up with much. Um, or they can't think of any types of activities that they should put on a resume. And a lot of times, what is helpful is to think about the job that they are applying for first. And some students are ready for this, and some students are not. But many times in appointments, I'll actually pull up a job description and use that as a tool for them. Because a lot of times employers are looking for soft skills. They're looking for communication, critical thinking, organizational skills. So it starts to get the students thinking about their past experience, not only work experience, but leadership examples, volunteer experience, clubs on campus, as well as, any type of customer service job they may or may not have in high school. So really good to think about the job description as a tool when you're putting a resume together. As well, thinking about from the employer's perspective, what they're really looking for in the candidate. What's their vision or their mission? What are the company's values? And then making sure that you are using that job description and changing your resume every single time you submit an application. This is definitely hard for students, and I've walked it through with many students over and over again. But it is a challenge because not every resume can have everything on it. And so each resume really does need to be tailored to that job description, to that specific employer. And we highly recommend that students spend some time doing that rather than just blanket send out a general resume to everyone. Unfortunately, that is not working any longer. So really tailoring your resume to the employer and that specific job description is what we recommend. Resume overview. So the concise one page, that's pretty common these days. I don't think it's as mandatory as it used to be, although we still do typically recommend the one page for undergraduate students. Grad students who maybe have some more work experience can definitely move on to 2 pages. The key is to make things as concise as possible and to remember that the recruiter primarily will only read what's on the first page. So making sure that your sections are in the order that you want so that the recruiter sees the information that's most pertinent to that job. Um, Definitely thinking about your format. So I will show you some formats that we prefer. Students oftentimes do just Google a resume or go on Canva to find a resume. And unfortunately, those formats are not really applicable with the applicant tracking systems. So big chunky columns or a lot of color, things like that are really not going to help get the student to the hiring manager. So we do recommend the really boring PDF. Um, templates that we have on our website, and I will show you where to find those. Definitely no photos. Definitely no link to references, and definitely is also no personal pronouns. So sometimes a student maybe has a resume where they say they talk a lot about themselves and they use more of like a sentence format. My job here required this, or I completed this task. But the bullets really need to be succinct and no use of that personal pronoun. So kind of changing the student's mindset to go away from the sentence structure and more specific bullet structure. Obviously, super red flag if you've got a typo or a spelling error, especially these days. Run your resume through spell check, please. And then no falsified or inflated information. I'm going to mention this one really specifically because with the rise of AI, a lot of students are using ChatGPT or other tools to help build their resume. And we definitely recommend that you can do that. It's definitely something that we're all well versed with in our office, so the students can come in and chat with us about it. But what happens sometimes is ChatGPT will assume that you have a skill and you actually do not. So it's really important to make sure that you are taking a look at what ChatGPT is saying that you have, because anything that's on your resume is something that the recruiter can ask you about. And they're going to know right off the bat if you do not have that skill or ability. So really want to asterisk that bottom bullet there. So no falsified or inflated information. And, just keep in mind that it is a document that, you're going to be using in an interview. So anything is fair game that you put on there. So um, keep that in mind. For our Santa Clara students, particularly in the Levy School of Business, make sure that you put in your education Bachelor of Science in Commerce, because that is technically what the degree is called. And then you can put major in finance or major in marketing or, whatever it is. We do recommend that our current undergrads have education at the top. We do recommend a GPA if it's over about a 3.1, 3.2. There are some jobs, maybe like accounting and things like that, that would really look for over a 3.5. So once again, making sure you're really paying attention to that job description. Um, Related coursework is also a key section that we have seen employers really interested in, because they understand that students might not have a ton of work experience that is really related, but a lot of the classes they're familiar with. So particularly if it's an internship and they're looking for someone who's a junior, but maybe you took the class as a sophomore, that would be impressive. So that would be something that you would want to make sure that you put in the related coursework section. And then make sure that you use the actual description of the class. So not like OMIS 15 or something like that, but actually what the class stands for. So that's pretty much the education section. Um, Key strategies in general. So when we're looking at the body of the resume, we do know that applicant tracking systems prefer the word experience. So you've got the education section. For the experience section, you're going to want to say work experience or professional experience. And then you have a section, maybe leadership experience or volunteer experience. But we've been told that that word experience will make sure that the applicant tracking system will read that section. Oftentimes, if the section has a header like let's say co-curriculars, then oftentimes the applicant tracking system doesn't know what that is and will just spit it out. So that whole section will not be what the recruiter or the hiring manager sees. So those headers are actually very important. Um, and when we're thinking about what to put in those different sections, like I mentioned before, you could have work experience that is paid or unpaid. So that could be internships, that could be part-time jobs, that could be things from high school. If you're just a first year or a sophomore, we still see some things from high school that are pertinent, particularly if it was a job where you can highlight those soft skills, like I mentioned before, customer service, attention to detail, work ethic, things like that. And then volunteer opportunities for sure. Any type of club responsibilities that would really highlight your leadership experience. And then athletics as well. If you're a student athlete, we do recommend having that on your resume as well. Like I mentioned before, when you're tailoring your resume, it's really important to have a page that is like really long, so sort of like your master version. And then from there, you can pull over the information that is the most applicable to the resume that you submit for this specific job. In the title of the document or the PDF, I would recommend that you put your name, your full name, so that they know exactly whose resume this is. And then you can also put the company name so that you know this is the resume specifically for ServiceNow or eBay or something like that. And then it showcases to them that you've taken the time to think about their job and to take a look at the job description and tailor your resume to it, which they definitely appreciate. So that is the experience section. The other section that we do recommend is a project section. And a lot of times students haven't really thought this through when they come to the Career Center, which is fine. But it's really an impactful section. So, and I'll show you this on the templates, but we do recommend that you've got the education section with the relevant coursework, and then the project section, and then the work experience section, and then leadership experience or volunteer experience. For the projects, what you're really looking for is things that you did in class that showcase a skill that is not obvious in the rest of your resume. So, I know one of the classes that might be obvious is Intro to Spreadsheets. A lot of our students take an Intro to Spreadsheets class. And from their perspective, I've heard students say, oh, it was just like a one-unit Excel class. But to an employer, that showcases that you did a deep dive into Excel and you really know how to use it, and you could use it for them. So that putting a class like that into a project section, and then you talk a little bit about the use of Excel, a project that you use, usually that's some type of data that you analyze or something like that. That's a great one. Also, any types of projects, especially if like you're a humanities or social science major, if you used any type of research tools, any type of editing or writing, especially if you're a communications major and you're looking to do some type of social media marketing, right? So those types of projects would really be impactful. Even if you haven't done any work experience like that, showcasing that in the project section is definitely what we recommend. And you can have 2 or 3 projects, so you don't necessarily need to only have one. But I would just keep in mind that those projects are easy things to cut in and out depending on the job description. So thinking about maybe even 4 or 5 projects that are on your master list, master resume, and then pulling over the ones that are most applicable would be what we would recommend when you're doing your resume. Perfect. So let's get in a little bit deeper into the bullets themselves. So this is sort of the bullet structure. What you're trying to think about is what we call here is the CAR accomplishment statements. So you've got a context, you have an action, and then you have a result. What I've found with students is that they frequently forget the result. So they're very focused on the action that they took, and they don't really tie it to what happened afterward. And that's really can be impactful when you're thinking about the types of skills that an employer is looking for. So thinking about not only what you did, but what was the purpose of it. So thinking about a bullet where you, even if it was like a bullet where you were working for a customer service kind of job, and maybe you handled customer inquiries, and the outcome would be an increase in customer satisfaction. So that's something that is also potentially quantifiable, which is great. Any types of numbers in these sections within the bullets are always great. So maybe, if it was a customer service job where you had to answer the phone, you could talk about how many phone calls you took, on a daily basis and how the increase in customer satisfaction went up by a certain percent. Um, Another great way to showcase that is if you've done any sort of like social media type work, you're talking about the percentage of increased followers by a certain number or the click-through rates, things like that. Those are all things that are really great to emphasize in a bullet. So not only having a result, but also making it as quantifiable as possible. And making the details so that the reader is interested. So making it a bullet that really also hits on some of those soft skills that the job description is looking for. That can be really helpful. So a lot of times, the soft skills change based on the job description, and there's easy ways within the bullets to swap out one thing versus another. So I always find that's a great spot to tell students to take a little closer look at that. And then always keeping in mind that you need to make sure these are things you actually did, because the recruiter or hiring manager will definitely ask you about them. And then we'll want to know a little bit more about that experience. So making sure that that is all accurate is what we highly recommend. So I've got an example here of how to use that context, action, and result. And so an example here would be developed content and taught Excel basics course to 25 adolescents and adults, resulting in increased knowledge, understanding, and competence. So you're talking a little bit about a class that you led. So you've got that leadership bit in there. You've got the Excel, so any type of tools that you've used, definitely adding them in there, and then also the quantifiable numbers in there, and then the result at the end. So what was the point of what you were trying to do? We also definitely recommend adding any type of skill, like a hard skill like Excel or R or Python or Canva, anything like that that you've had any experience with within the bullets as well as within the skills section. So we do recommend at the end, I know I talked about the experience sections. I also recommend at the end having a skills section. And anytime you put something down there in the skills section, ideally you also want it in a bullet, either in the project section or in the experience section. Because from a recruiter or hiring manager perspective, they see it in the skills section and they're kind of like, okay, they list it, but I don't know how well they know it. I don't know what they used it for. So it's really great to go ahead and articulate how actually I used that platform or that tool. And then typically it's an easy question for someone to answer as well. So you're going to dig a little bit deeper because maybe it's something that you want that person to do for you. A lot of times, students have used Canva for projects, and that's very frequently something that employers are looking for, that skill. Um, so I always recommend that students add that in as well. So, as an overview, I just want to mention that we do provide obviously all of these different recommendations to students. Obviously, it's up to them for what they put here and there. But making sure that you've got some examples to show them are helpful, and I will show you where to go with that. And with the rise of LinkedIn, we also frequently recommend that students have a LinkedIn on as well, have their LinkedIn URL on their resume. And the difference on the LinkedIn profile, there's an opportunity to give a lot more information and also to showcase what the student wants to do. So the resume, it's a little bit harder to showcase in like your intention of what you want to do next. We don't recommend that students have an objective section anymore. Some students do continue to have a summary section, and that would go above education if they're interested in that. I would recommend a summary section if it's someone where it's not obvious. Say they are a finance major, but they want to go into marketing, or they're an art history major and they want to go into marketing. So summary at the top of that can be really beneficial. And then also on the LinkedIn, you can also mention the summary there as well of what you're actually interested in doing going forward. So it's also much easier to have a longer format as well. So those are just some broad information. Also, when listing, like I mentioned before, the Bachelor of Science in Commerce is what our Levy School of Business students' degree should be called. And then also spelling out Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science for other areas as well that we highly recommend that students do that. So I'm going to pause for a second and see if anyone has questions on the resumes before I shoot over to cover letters. And feel free to come off mute if you have a question.
I have a couple of questions. I don't know if I'll remember them all. I often have students who list soft skills, like they'll say they're good at teamwork and good at communication and adaptable and quick thinking. Do you
Mhm.
recommend listing those? I generally ask them to sort of try to weave that into a
Leave
job
it in.
description and not list, languages and computer science skills and platforms, like you said, Canva and R,
Hmm.
but not soft skills. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I prefer to see it woven into the bullet points within the experience section, work experience, volunteer experience, leadership experience. That's where it makes the most sense to me. I know I have seen it as well where students will put it in the skills section. It feels a little bit to me when they do that, they're just throwing it in there.
Filling space, perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'd rather see almost like a hard skill, right? I'd rather see how they were adaptable
Right.
by looking at a bullet. So I get where they're coming from at this point when we're asking students to, every job description has to have a different resume. It can be hard and overwhelming. But some students, I do find as well can add it to a summary section.
Okay.
And that is an option as well if they feel like it's just too overwhelming to edit the bullets all at once. But the keywords are the keywords, and honestly, all that we're hearing is that the more you've got the keywords in the resume, the better your chance of getting an interview. So in the end, just get it in there.
And are you an absolute no on photos? Because the students will look at sample resumes and get all excited because they look
Yeah,
fancy, and you're just an absolute no for any
absolute
field?
no. Absolute no. Yeah.
Okay, okay. And what
So,
about color that isn't a giant block, like a horizontal bar that's a
yeah.
blue or something like that?
So, one caveat, if you're going to hand your resume to someone, then you could have some color on it. And I know we get this question from communications and marketing students because
Right.
they're like, but this is the ugliest document I have ever seen. And I totally get that. But if you're applying online, we've been told that a picture will spit the whole resume out and you won't even know. You'll think you applied and you didn't. And that's it, right? And so students are going to be get ghosted regardless. Ghosting is a
Right.
thing, but let's improve our chances at least. So I'm a definite no to photos. But with the colors, I feel like if you're going to hand someone your resume in person, okay, fine. If you're applying online, I would still avoid them. Even you could have a line that's black, but a line that's blue, like once again, you're just confusing the ATS. So we don't recommend it. Um, the other thing that I do recommend for anyone who's in a creative kind of career is a portfolio. So a link to your portfolio, a link to your personal website, a link to your GitHub, something like that, where they can go and see your creative side. Great, that's perfect. But it's not a place for the actual resume. Yeah.
And then you said in the opening slide, no personal pronouns. And my first thought was like Melissa Donegan, she, her. But you mean don't use
Oh,
I in your statements. Do you have a thought on that? I mean, I feel like now it's probably just a bad idea, even if that you're invested in that. Are you hearing anything about?
personal pronouns. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's up to the student, obviously. If you are going to do it, it's really actually important where you put it. Because if you put it right after your name, the applicant tracking system thinks it's part of your name. And
Okay.
then it's a mess, right? So because it's just parsing all this information, right? So if you do feel like you should put it. We say that you put it so you've got like your name and then underneath you have like phone number, email, LinkedIn. You could put it right there after the LinkedIn. It's not necessarily very common anymore. It definitely was 6 months ago, but it's totally up to the student because I get everyone's situation is different.
And then are people, I'm having students who are just putting their city and state with a class,
Hmm.
they may just want to be protect their privacy, but
Hmm.
do employers expect a full street address?
No, city and state's
City and state's
perfect.
okay.
City and
Okay.
state is perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I actually highly recommend that students do that if they want a position back home. So if they came from Seattle, Washington, put Seattle, Washington underneath your name because that's where you're from, that's where you're looking. And a lot of times, once again, the applicant tracking system is parsing for someone who's either done work in Seattle, Washington, or is from Seattle, Washington. So it just makes it really obvious. And so that can give you a leg up because a lot of times hiring managers want to hire students for an internship at a certain city. They want to know that you have somewhere to live because they don't want to have to pay for it. They want to know that they could give you a return offer and you're going to want to come back to that city. So there's a whole lot of other psychology going on behind that as well. So kind of thinking about it from the hiring manager perspective too.
But all their communication will come through email. So they're not, when I got
Right.
hired, I got a little postcard asking me for my
Oh,
my race and class and gender, but they're not gonna mail you anything anymore.
no, no,
Okay.
no, no. They're not going to be. Yeah. So no, the complete address doesn't matter, but city and state is perfect.
Okay. Oh, thanks very much. I appreciate your
Yeah.
answers.
Yeah, of course. Katie, did I cover your question about creative?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Yeah. I know it's a tough one because we have so many creative students and they have amazing work and it's so hard for them to have the most boring resume on the planet. But what you want is your best chance to get seen and putting that resume in the boring format is what we've found that employers can see gets through the applicant tracking system. And again, that could change, right? Applicant tracking systems are much better now than they were years ago. But for now, that's definitely what we've been told. Okay, cover letters. I'm going to go through this cover letter section and then I'm going to go through and show you our samples on our resume and also some of our resources and tools. So that's coming up. Um, Cover letters, also something that students just do not like, which I totally get. Um, can should they submit a cover letter if it's optional? I get that question constantly. And the answer is yes. Unfortunately, yes. If there's an opportunity to showcase something about yourself, should you submit it? Yes. Do recruiters read them? Sometimes. So what I try to tell students is it's important. You got to do it, but don't spend so much time on it. Don't stress out a ton about it because it might be read, it might not be read, but is it worth doing? Yes. Um, the easiest way to kind of go through the cover letter is basically three main parts. I also say, like, just, don't overthink it. That main part is like how you found out about the position. I saw this position on LinkedIn, or I was referred to this position by such and such, who I know at the company, whatever. And then they say something about themselves. So if you are interested in a role where let's go back to the social media role, right? Because a lot of our students do that for internships. So the little message about you is something to do with your skills within the realm of social media. That could be, focusing on, a position that you had or a club that you were a part of. What you don't want it to do is to be exactly the same as that bullet you put on the resume, right? So tweak that a little bit so that it's something about you. That paragraph can basically be on every cover letter if you're applying primarily to social media jobs. If you're also applying to, say, like brand marketing positions, then that blurb will have to change. But for the most part, that blurb about you is talking about your soft skills. Definitely, you could add adaptability in there, things like that, with maybe a little example. And then the second paragraph is the paragraph that always has to change. So that is specifically about the employer and why you want to work for them. Because if you think about it from a hiring manager perspective, they want someone who's done the research, knows they want to work there, and that if they spend the time training you, you're going to stay. If you get a return offer, you'd be interested in returning. So you want to showcase something that you found, something on their website, something in the recent news, something about, the position and how it interacts with the community, whatever it is, that paragraph. And again, we're talking like 2 or 3 sentences. So it doesn't have to be a very extensive cover letter. But those are the main parts. And then the close is just, I look forward to hearing from you, blah, blah, blah. Now, ChatGPT um, can help you with cover letters. You can put the job description, put your resume into ChatGPT, ask ChatGPT to put a cover letter together for you. What I would say is that typically it makes you sound a little bit too smart. And so that is why I feel like recruiters immediately are like, whoa, this is clearly ChatGPT written. And there's nothing worse than that, honestly. I'd go with that, that and maybe grammatical errors are the two worst things that a recruiter can see. Someone didn't take the time to write the cover letter, or at least take the ChatGPT-ishness out of it, are the grammatical errors. Those are like two big red flags for recruiters. So what I say if students want to use ChatGPT, which I totally get because it can make it faster, you can ask ChatGPT to write the cover letter like a 15-year-old, because that makes it sound a little bit more like yourself. Or you can go through it yourself and say, okay, I can tell that this, first of all, did I even do that? Second of all, I would never say that kind of statement. So let's make this, a little shorter, a little more condensed, make it sound a little bit more like me. So it's really up to the student. Sometimes people find that putting it in ChatGPT makes it easier. Sometimes that people find that editing ChatGPT is harder. So you kind of gotta go with that. So the statement of interest is that first part that I mentioned. So I'll go into these sections a little bit more. If you were given a personal connection, definitely mention them. That would be a great place right at the top so that we know that you got referred by someone, and reiterating, the actual position title that you're applying to. It should all be connected to the same position number, but just in case, that can't hurt. And then within there, within that little section about yourself, you're talking about your qualifications, experience or skills. If you've got a little story, that's always helpful. Obviously recruiters get so many resumes that it can become overwhelming, but if you've got a little story that is memorable, that's ideal. And then the request for action is the bottom. So you're basically saying, I look forward to hearing from you. Would love to follow up and have an interview, that kind of thing. So pretty straightforward. While I pull up our job prep toolkit, feel free to come off mute and ask me any other specific cover letter questions if you have any, or resume questions as well. Okay, so if you were to Google us here at the Career Center, can you still see my screen? Okay. Here is the job prep toolkit. So within the Career Center, most of these things are public resources, particularly our cover letter and resume templates. So this little resume button here will take you directly to this page, and then it will take you to a Google Doc that is our guide. And there's so much information here. And like I said, this is publicly available. So, if there's parents that are asking these questions, they can go on here if they'd like. Lots of opportunities. And what you can do is then scroll down and you can see we've got a resume checklist. You can see we have, ideas of the fonts you should use, action verbs, which are really helpful for students. You want to make sure you change the action verb each time. And a lot of students, I feel like, also frequently start a sentence with helped something. And it's like, well, let's see if we can make that a little bit stronger. So coming to this list makes it really easy for them. We also have some examples of those accomplishment-based statements. So how to end that result. Make sure you've got that result in there. even some examples here of like the tiny little statements that students often have and how to sort of expand, think about it a little bit bigger. Um, and then within the templates themselves, we have a bunch based on majors. So personally, I like this business Bronco one, even for our students who are not in business, history majors, sociology majors, primarily because it showcases this project section. And I feel like when I explain it to students, um, showing this visual is really helpful because I think it gets a little bit overwhelming when you're like, oh, think about a homework assignment that you did that was impactful. And they're like, what, from what? What class? Where? So I think this showcases a little bit better. You can put the course name, the project name. You can just make up a project name. It doesn't have to be like the name of the homework assignment. And then it's just, it's one bullet to explain the project. So they also don't need to overthink it, but making sure you've got some skills in there. And in this instance, you're just trying to showcase that you have some research skills, and this is a great opportunity to do it. So I do find that that's really helpful. And then if you keep going, we have a whole slew of other ones. We've got some technical ones, studio art, all sorts of stuff. And then it will go into the cover letter templates as well. So this is a great document for either of these things. And then it showcases an example of the cover letter with a few different examples of how you could either do it in a bullet point format or a paragraph format. This one to me looks a smidge long, but trying to keep it as succinct as possible. Um, so this document is really great. And again, the website for this is the Job Prep Toolkit. So that is on the Santa Clara Career Center website. So all you would do is Google us, SCU Career Center, and the top comes up here. And then you go to this Job Prep Toolkit here. And this is where the links are to all of our resources. Feel free to peruse them all. But particularly here, we're focused on the personal branding piece and the resume and cover letter guideline there. The other thing that I wanted to showcase is our tool called Job Scan. So unless anyone has any other question for that, I will go ahead and move over there. So students have Job Scan not only here on our website, but also in their MySCU portal. They actually will have a Job Scan tile that they can see. And it's right here, looks like that. So within JobScan itself, so this is a tool that is not perfect, I'm going to say right now, because not everything within ChatGPT is perfect these days. But it's a great tool to sort of understand what I was saying before about how those keywords really matter. And once you get into JobScan, you'll kind of see what I mean. So all the students have an account as long as they have an scu.edu email. You can see, like I just did, you go through your Duo and it will pop up. And my screen looks a smidge different because I'm in admin mode, but the thing that I really like the best is this scanning feature. So what you do is you go ahead and you cut and paste a job description, and then you cut and paste a resume. And it will parse out the different types of skills, hard skills, soft skills that you're missing. So I'll go ahead and show you an example. So here is a ServiceNow financial analyst position. And what I did was I uploaded a job description and it looked like this. So I just literally cut and paste it from LinkedIn. I uploaded a resume and then it goes through and it tells you some of the things that you did well. It also tells you some of the things that it suggests would get you a higher match rate. A match rate of 54% is great, actually. Anything in the 50s is great. Because what you're thinking about is you still have to be a unique person and have your own skills. So you don't want a 100% match with the job description. But One recommendation, it says right here that the job title of a finance intern. The reason it's saying that is because a lot of times companies are looking for someone that has had the job before. So that's not necessarily going to be the case for students. This is where something like a summary section could help because you could put in the summary section that you're looking for to be a finance intern, and then that would be match of the job title. For the hard skills, you'll see it mentions how many times you said something, and then it will mention kind of different things which are really interesting, right? So maybe on your resume you put ratio analysis, and really that's the same thing potentially as variance analysis, right? So you would know then to sort of tweak your language to make it match. The other thing that's really cool about this tool is it can help you with different applicant tracking systems. So this is really getting into the weeds, but there's a lot of different types of applicant tracking systems. And of course, they're not all the same. So some of them want you to spell out things, and some of them will take the abbreviations. And by that, I mean something like this, MS Office Suite. So MS Office Suite was in the job description. And if the student had written Microsoft Office Suite, it's not picked up. So the student again could go in, add the skill section MS Office Suite, and that would make their match rate go up. So it's these little tweaks that can really make or break the difference of getting to the top of the pile. And that's basically what you're trying to do. Um, Applying as early as possible to positions and also tweaking them so they match the job description as much as possible is great. What I do recommend, particularly with JobScan, making some of these tweaks offline on your resume and then going back in and rescanning. That's really the easiest way to do it. They've got a whole lot of other tools on here in JobScan. The templates on here, I would say, are kind of hit or miss. So that's personally what I like to do. Take it off, tweak it a little bit. If you really like your format, you like your layout and things like that, just change some of the words around and then do that. Same thing here with soft skills, so you can see how that looks. Um, and then, yeah, that's basically the job scan information. I'll take a pause there in case anyone has questions on job scan. Perfect. So the only other thing to note, if you are working with alums, recent alums, things like that, we could give them access to JobScan. We do have a number of alumni seats, so all they have to do is email us and ask. We're happy to give this out because I know there's a lot of recent grads who are still looking for positions. So I do think the tool is great. You do, like I said, have to sort of learn how to work with it. But once you get the hang of it, I think it really helps you visualize what you're seeing in a job description and how you can articulate that on your resume. Yeah, perfect. So I have a couple other slides, um, and then that's about it. So just things coming up in the future. We have a packed fall for the students, so would love any help that you have to get the word out about all the different things we have coming up. We are going to have a resume table in the front of Benson every Tuesday from 1 to 2 o'clock. That's like a drop-in resume review. So if a student just has a question, encourage them to come by. We've got this workshop on next week on September 25th, which is our first sort of kickoff resume workshop before the career fairs. And then if they want a deeper dive into JobScan, the company JobScan is actually going to do a virtual webinar for us on the 21st, October 21st. So they'll really dig into like all the different pieces and things like that they can do. This is our quarterly graphic over here on the left. With all the different types of things, resumes and else, all the other things that we've got going on, and as well our career fair schedule. So we do have 3 different fairs coming up. We've got the fall career fair, which is called the Bash. That's on October 2nd. We have a grad school fair for the first time this year. We are hosting grad schools We've got at least, I think, 12 different grad schools coming, and that's at Locatelli on October 14th. And then we have our STEM career fair, which will be outside of the Skiddy Courtyard on October 16th. And these links all take you to Handshake. So if you want to get the slide, send it out, feel free. I can definitely email it to you. Also, if you are interested in a Handshake account yourself and you don't have one, I'm happy to set you up with that so that you can see what the students are seeing. That is the end of my presentation, so I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and then I can definitely hang on for any additional questions.